I've come to the office this morning to share a few thoughts about behaviours and COVID. Like many people in Europe, I've been working from home for the last 6 months, so I haven't been here. I wonder what it's like. I've already seen signs on the floor, on the wall, and here in reception. Seems very quiet. There's plexiglass at reception and signs again on the floor to keep my social distance. It's normally buzzing with 150 economists working away, but it's quiet. Those that are here are keeping their social distance or wearing face masks or both. Similar picture in our offices in Berlin, in Madrid, in Brussels, as well as for our teams working remotely in Central Europe. There are no clients visible in the meeting rooms here. Perhaps like you, they're all on Zoom or Teams or Skype or whatever. You get the picture. It may be similar in parts of your business. And with your clients. But do you think that these new contexts, these new situation will change the way I behave when I'm in the office here, the way in which your people behave when they're working from home, and your customers when they interact with you? Do you think that will change? Well, you bet it will. You bet it will. COVID-19 has been transformative. It's changed the context all around us. It's changed the way we interact and changed the way we do business. So what I want to do is share a few thoughts from behavioral economics point of view and how we might better understand these changing behaviors and how we might be in a better position, therefore, to adapt and survive. My name is Stephen Heal, and I'm a behavioral economist with Frontier Economics. I've been working for the last 10 years or more on the practical end of behavioral economics, helping clients to help their clients change their behaviors, whether it's a water company, helping people save water, nudging people to use less energy in an energy company, or to save for their retirements for banks and insurance companies. Changing defaults, changing the way in which things are structured in order to get better outcomes, both for the companies and for the clients. Sometimes it's about designing new products and services, providing insight from behavioral perspectives that will help design better things. Now, many of these are designed to help change, bring behavioral change about, but never before, never in the last 10 years have I seen such change as I've seen in the last several months. Change on such a scale and so rapidly as we've seen under COVID-19. COVID has really been transformative. I usually start engagements with clients with a question like this: which customer behaviors drive the economics of your business? What are they doing that hits your bottom line? Now, there's an urgency to this, and it's changed. They come to me and say, it's all changing. Will it stick? Will these changes stick? So have a think about your business, the situation you're in, and think, write down, what are the one or two behaviors that are key to your economics? You're part of the business. Think how they're changing. Write it down now. Let's have a look at some of the big changes that we see all around us. There's changes in behavior. I'll call out just 3 of them now. But the first one, I think that was really transformative and disruptive, is that more people staying at home. They're either working from home, they're unemployed and have to be at home, or they're just not going out the way in which they used to. Now that'll have an effect on the pattern of demand for energy and water. It'll have a demand effect on telecoms operators. People like Vodafone are seeing 50% increase in the way in which their broadband is demanded in Italy, Spain, and right across Europe. Water companies, electricity companies will need to restructure their grids, rebalance their systems to be able to cope with the shift from downtown city centre locations where people aren't to more commuter belt country, in some cases in the UK, to more commuter belts. These affect their operations, but also their economics. A second one, when they do go out, people are going less far. They're staying local. Now, banks may be worried, rightly so, about their exposure in city centres, real estate. But they should also be worrying about their exposure in restaurants and hotel sectors, hospitality sectors, and travel, of course. Heathrow Airport saw in April, the whole of April, passengers going through their airport equivalent to 1 day before the crisis. Massive shift. Will passengers return? Possibly leisure travel. They did after 9/11. They did after the economic crisis. But business travel never recovered in the same way. I think we will see bigger shifts in business travel and the way in which people do business afterwards. Reservations, on the other hand, in Airbnb are now 80% domestic. And I'm hearing that some businesses around Lake Balaton in Hungary have had their best summer ever. Will this become a new habit? Let's see. In sales in hotels in regions that are dependent on international travel, places like southern Spain, we saw card transactions drop by 90% or more when the lockdown hit, and they've barely recovered this summer. Lastly, I just want to quickly touch on something that's perhaps most familiar to you given this conference, digital business. What we've seen is a shift in existing behaviors, an acceleration of existing changes, I think. But whether you're in online retail, whether you're in banking or education, whichever sector, it's all moving more and more digitally, faster than we ever thought. I remember watching Sales Tech 3 years ago, and one of the presenters saying, in 5 years' time, you might all be watching this from home on VR headsets. Well, it's partly true, and it's faster than we thought. We're watching this on Zoom. To help us navigate and understand these big shifts in behavior. These big shifts in behavior are caused by millions of individuals, individual people, making billions of decisions right across the world, across Europe, and includes the behavior of your customers making their decisions with you. So how do we think about those individual behaviors? How do you get under the skin of it? Well, first of all, it's important to think that we don't think like we think we think. Secondly, that behaviors are actions, they're not opinions. Thirdly, that the context around us is terribly important, changes the way in which we respond, and that new habits can form, do form, and give you a chance to form your new normal with your clients in the future. Let's unpick that a bit. We don't think like we think we think. That's right. The truth is, businesses, their processes, their policies, their regulations have normally been based around an assumption of rational economic decision-making by their customers, by their staff. That's what a lot of the world has been based on for many years. But that's not quite true. People don't think and then act. That's not the way it works. People are the result of millions of years of evolution. We are the result of all the decisions made by our forefathers who acted intuitively, instinctively, fast, without thinking. In fact, what we do is we do first. We might think about it afterwards and only later explain it if needed. Or try to explain it, but we don't know why we did it. It's a result of the context around us and our instincts. And behavioral scientists think that about 90% of the decisions day to day that we make are intuitive, instinctive, without thinking. Daniel Kahneman brought this to us about 30 years ago. And I highly recommend his Nobel Prize, you read his Nobel Prize lecture, or his book, Thinking Fast, Thinking Slow, which explains a little bit behind this. When I got my coffee this morning, I had my usual. I didn't think about it. I just acted, got my usual. It's easy. The next thing to think about is that behaviors, when we talk about behaviors in economics, behaviors are actions. They're not opinions. They're not projections. They're not why I did things. They're actions, things that can be measured in time, in space, and observed. If the organizers of next year's conference, Sales Tech 2021, if they were to ask you what you wanted to eat when you got there, they gave you a choice, fruit or biscuits. Most of you will say fruit. I've done this a number of times at a number of conferences and measured it. The last conference before lockdown, 79% of the delegates said they wanted fruit in the breaks. Now, being behavioral scientists, we don't believe them because they're talking about their future selves. When you measure what they eat when they get to the conference, a much lower percentage of people eat fruit. They go for the biscuits in the present, in the now, the sugar today, the reward now, not a kind of healthy fruit. If conference organizers, the firms, base their economic decisions and procurement decisions on the basis of what delegates told them their future selves would do, they'd lose money. A lot of fruit would be wasted. If you ask your customers now what they will do in the future state post-COVID in an unknown world, at an unknown point in time, what they will do, you will not get a good answer. You're much better off. It would be fruitless asking them even. You'd be much better off observing what they do as the situation evolves, looking at their actual behaviors. The next thing to remember is that context matters. Context is vital to the way in which people make decisions. Context, physical, social, emotional, and sort of economic will feed into that. But what is around your customers? What is around? People, for example, reference everything around them. They will eat only from the tree that others eat from. They won't wear the purple flared jeans that I'm not wearing today because, well, they went out of fashion in the 70s. They will buy in the bull market and the stock exchange. They will even run with bulls in the streets of Pamplona in Spain in the festival for running with the bulls because other people are doing it with the bulls, not away from them. They will do that. Social proof will drive what we do. In New York during the COVID crisis in New York, policemen went to Central Park with a strategy of giving out free face masks to people. That way, people arriving in the park later could see lots of people wearing face masks. By doing so, they will get the social cue, the social proof. It's right to wear one. Everyone else is. It's a new norm. That was a successful tactic by the New York Police Department. Another example for context and adaptation to context was a client we worked with in television. They wanted to get people to sign up to their video on demand services. So they designed a process where they go to the website and people give in their name and address and details and email address, etc., and they get signed up. And there was some reward at the end, like early access to something. Didn't really work. So they came, well, what could they do based on behavioral insights that would improve that? Well, context matters. So we helped them redesign that process so that thinking about their customers, their viewers, in their living rooms, on their sofas, watching some programs and engaging them during that program to sign up. Not go and sign up on our website, but engage in a game, perhaps in a game show, where in order to participate, you could choose a team, your local team. Where do you live? You have to tell us. Sign up now, tell us, And we will therefore, as an intuitive and a natural part of the engagement in the appropriate context, get people to sign up. Nearly half of the UK population under 40 are now signed up to that service. Remember also, when you're thinking about context, that COVID is affecting different people in different ways. Of the sectors that are shut down, here are the sectors in the UK, the employment in those sectors is disproportionately affecting the young and women more than men. Companies that are adapting now, looking and applying a behavioral approach, are thinking about how the context has changed for their customers. They're changing their segmentation to one that's perhaps more behavioral, looking at health vulnerabilities, economic vulnerabilities, and where people are physically, what's around them. Think about what's around you now. Where are you watching this? How are you watching this? What time is it? Perhaps you're watching this in catch up in the evening. COVID has allowed us to change the thinking about what's the right contextual time to do our work. One of the questions that behavioral scientists have been asked, perhaps more than ever in this crisis, is which of the behaviors that will stick? Which of the behaviors that are going to hang around after the crisis? And therefore, do I need to adapt to them now? Companies want to know whether they need to make the changes. Behaviors that stick are ones, because behavioral science knows quite a lot about this from studies of smoking or obesity. The model basically for habit formation is one where you have a repeated action over time, repeated several times for a given cue or trigger that stimulates an action which then gets a reward. For smokers, that might be going into a pub, sitting down with a drink. That's the cue. The action is a cigarette. They get their nicotine high as their reward, and that's repeated every time they go to the pub. For me, it's the coffee. When I arrive in the morning outside the office, I see the Starbucks sign, cue, trigger an action, flat white, please. I get my reward, my coffee. And I've repeated that many hundreds of times over the last few years. That's likely to stick as a habit. Which of the actions that you and the behaviors that you see changing today are likely to stick? Depends partly on that. Is it wearing face masks? Possibly. It's a oft-repeated action, certainly. The context, if the context changes post-COVID, maybe we don't need to wear them anymore. Maybe people, and is there a reward for wearing face masks? Possibly a bit warmer, maybe. But in the winter, in the summer, I can't see that. Increased working from home, well, that's an action. That's a behavioral shift. I think we should think very carefully about this staying on. Not only is it repeated habit and people get used to working from home many hundreds of days now, but also the economics perhaps favor the firms to have more staff at home more of the time. So that might well stick. We've talked about business travel, leisure travel, but business travel didn't recover, as I said, didn't recover after 9/11 and the economic crisis last time. I'm not sure that it's going to recover again. The advances in technology of Zoom and the like mean that, well, I don't need to be with you in Budapest. Shame I can't be there, but I don't need to be there to do this conference speech. And digital, absolutely. This is a continuing and existing trend, whether, as I say, whichever sector you're in, things moving online, digitally, that's transformation, change that is continuing. So think about the behaviors that are specific to your businesses and your clients and think, will they stick? What's the context around them, the new context, how that changes, and therefore what you can do to adapt, to respond and survive. Good luck, and thank you for listening.